Today, we are diving into a topic that's absolutely critical for every single school district out there: IT security. But look, this isn't just about firewalls and tech jargon. It's really about protecting our students and, just as importantly, that fragile thing called public trust. And our guide for this whole discussion is a really insightful report from Bob Slovic over at Virtualization Options LLC. They're a group based out of Colorado that specializes in helping public agencies tackle this exact kind of problem.
So, you might be asking, how real is this threat really? Well, just take a look at this timeline. These are not hypotheticals or things that might happen. These are real attacks, and they're happening more and more often. I mean, we're talking about everything from phishing in Florida that messed with payroll to a huge ransomware attack in Baltimore that brought learning to a screeching halt. This stuff is happening right now in districts that probably look a lot like yours.
And that quote right there, that really gets to the heart of it all. See, a data breach isn't just some technical glitch that the IT department handles. It is a major violation of trust. The source material puts it perfectly. The damage just ripples outward, you know? It affects students, it affects their families, and it seriously shakes the public's confidence in our schools.
So why does it feel like the stakes are so much higher all of a sudden? It's about way more than just new technology. It's a completely new reality that public education is being forced to deal with.
The whole challenge really comes down to these three things that are all tangled up together. First, our schools are now completely dependent on their digital systems for, well, everything. Second, because they're sitting on this treasure trove of sensitive data, they've become a huge target for cybercriminals. And third, because of all that, communities are, quite rightly, demanding proof that their kids' data is actually safe. It's not a request anymore, it's a trust imperative.
Okay, so if those are the problems, what's the solution? Well, the report argues for a really clear blueprint for security, and that starts with a comprehensive IT audit.
So what in the world is an audit, really? Let's be clear. It is not about checking a bunch of boxes after something terrible has already happened. The key idea here is that it's a proactive and systematic process. It's about finding the cracks in your armor before an attacker even gets a chance to find them.
And this is so much bigger than just your IT department. A real audit looks at the whole picture. It all starts with getting the right people in the room. And that's not just the tech experts, but administrators and teachers too. From there, you go from reviewing policies on paper to actually checking physical security. Things like who can just walk into the server room. Then you dive deep into your digital defenses, your access controls, your disaster recovery plans, and, this is a big one, how well trained your staff actually is.
But hey, your internal systems are only half the story, right? What about all those outside vendors and software partners that have access to your network and your student data? This is a huge risk factor that, frankly, is often overlooked.
So it's worth taking a second and asking yourself this question directly. Just think about all the third-party learning tools, the data systems, the service providers you work with every day. Are you absolutely positive their security is as good as yours needs to be?
And it sounds like this is a lesson a lot of districts have had to learn the hard way. This quote from an educational leader in the report just drives the point home. A weakness in a partner system can become a wide-open door into your own.
This is exactly where you have to get proactive. Your vendor contracts are your first line of defense. The report lays out three things that should be non-negotiable for every single contract. You need clear security standards they must meet, you need the right for you to audit them, and you need a strict, clear requirement for them to tell you immediately if they have a breach.
When you get right down to it, all of these technical fixes and contract clauses are all serving a much bigger purpose: rebuilding and holding on to the trust of your community. And this is where that audit becomes way more than just an IT project.
This chart draws a really clear, direct line between a technical failure and how the public sees you. A data breach isn't just a data breach, it's a huge loss of confidence in the district's leadership. System downtime, that quickly turns into public criticism. The consequences are very real, and they can damage an institution's reputation long after the tech problem has been solved. So, how do you actually build that trust? The report gives a fantastic toolkit for being more transparent. It's about being open and sharing what you can, like summaries of your audits. It's about actually engaging with the community in these discussions, using technology to keep parents in the loop, and maybe even creating oversight committees to prove you're accountable.
Okay, I know this all sounds great in theory, but where do you even begin? Let's talk about the practical, actionable first steps for any school leader who's ready to tackle this.
The guide breaks it down into 3 pretty manageable first steps, which makes this whole process feel a lot less overwhelming. First, you assemble that diverse team we mentioned earlier. Get teachers, administrators, and IT all talking in the same room. Second, be super clear about what you're trying to achieve and what the scope of this audit will be. And third, just start by gathering what you already have, your current policies, and any data from incidents in the past.
If there's one message woven through this entire guide, it's urgency. Being proactive, protecting your systems through these kinds of rigorous audits, it's just not a nice-to-have anymore. It is the absolute foundation for keeping our schools secure in this digital age. And believe me, the cost of preventing a disaster is always less than the cost of cleaning one up.
And that really brings us to the final, most important question. This isn't just some technical exercise. It is a fundamental responsibility of leadership. So, with your students' data and your community's trust hanging in the balance, the only real question left to ask is, what's your next step?